Here in the heart of downtown Bartow lies the studio of Sherry Ross. Sherry is not only an artist, but she's also an art teacher setting out each day to inspire her students daily. When she's not teaching students, she's also an art advocate as the president of the Lakeland Arts Association, what used to be the Lakeland Art Guild. Today's creative individual is Sherry Ross, and this is her story.
Hi, I'm Sherry, and this is my studio. Come on in. I've been inspired by the small home movement, so I got a tough shed, and it's just a 16 by 24 tough shed that we finished out. We decided what we wanted. We went down and picked the windows, and I designed everything, and we knew we were going to have the back half be a bathroom and a dark room underneath the loft. You learn how you were taught, which is really funny because I had my teacher rode a Harley to school and wore tank tops and was a total hippie biker chick, and I thought she was just super cool. But in the middle of her lectures, she would have like an LSD flashback, and she would just, and the space here behind this is going to be a dark room for my husband. So we enclose this, and it's got a separate door back there, so it's not able to be accessed in any way from the interior. So that he has a dark room that's going to be fleshed out for us. And then she would snap back, and nothing had happened. And it was, it was the funniest thing. And I thought, wow, is this what artists are? I mean, are they just this kind of groovy hippie chicks that are, you know, kind of nutty? Over here, I've got kind of where I've got some new frames for different types of art. Depending on the kind of art I have these more traditional kind of just art show kind of frames, very subtle. I've got photographs down here. Some of those are frames, some of them aren't. This is my extensive collection of weirdo frames that I like to buy. And so then I'll make artwork to go in them because I love thrift storing.
When you're in school, most classes have the same formula. If each student gets the same problem, such as 1 + 1, or in science class, they get the same chemicals, mix them together, the conclusion is usually always the same answer. There's one key element that makes art class different.
I really appreciated kind of the freedom she allowed us to have. When I would come to her and say, she'd say, "What project are you gonna do?" And I would say, "I don't know." And so we'd talk for a few minutes, and then I'd say, "Well, this is what I wanna do." And she'd say, "Okay, do it." And I thought,
aren't you supposed to be telling me what to do?
Yeah, and that was kind of really, really strange to me to have that kind of freedom. And I know now she wasn't supposed to be doing that, but it worked out great for me.
Right.
And when I teach AP, you know, I have those same types of conversations with my kids now about, you know, what is it you want to do, or what are you bringing to the art? And so we have those conversations. But back then, you know, it was just very mind-blowing to me. And now I see it with my 9th grade kids coming in, and when I talk about, you know, for the entirety of their high school or their whole career, their education career, there's always been one answer. There's always been getting to that one answer. And so in art, you have a problem, and there should be equally as many valid answers as there are people answering the question. Here's my tiny little bathroom with a little shower. But it was my first semester up at Florida State, and I had several people in my scholarship house, because it was a house with 16 other girls. They were art majors. And I'm like, "Oh, should you take an art class?" And I was like, "Okay." So I took an art class, and I was really hooked. I was like, "Okay, this is fabulous." Because it was the project based. Here's your idea, here's the problem you have to solve, and then you got to make the art you wanted to make. You got to answer that question and solve that problem. And so I was really excited about that. And then my first semester I switched over and became an art major.
Some people fear art classes because when they walk in, they don't know all the skills yet. The role of the art teacher is to ease their minds.
Well, we start out with really basic stuff because I think, and a friend of mine gave me a sticker that says, don't fear art. And art is one of those black boxes, and everybody assumes that when you walk through the door, you already have to be talented, but it's my job to teach them. And so I started out with very simple assignments, kind of letting them make sure that they are able to be successful. And then I kind of start layering in individual choices. And I said, guys, I get that it's scary because, again, the idea that you've never had any choice in all of your career in school. I said, this is the one place you get to make all the choices. And I said, I scaffold in things so you feel safe and comfortable and confident, but you get to make choices. And so that kind of supports them and makes it so that they're able to kind of become more. There are going to be kids that art is not their thing, and I'm okay with that. This is the steps up to the loft, and as you can see, there's a lot of storage of my work and some more frames up there. The drafting table is from my mother-in-law when she used to work at the Courier Gazette in Maine. So when my husband was a little child, he would go visit his mom. And so when she retired, and they closed down the place and she retired, she got her drafting table.
Through creativity and a little self-exploration, students can thrive in their art classes.
I think, and when you say art, I know you're meaning arts, you know, music, dance, drama, all of those things, because those are the places they can actually express themselves. Those are the places they do get to make choices, because everywhere else, nothing is their choice. And so it's one of the few places where they can actually kind of explore who they want to be as a grown-up.
Right.
And I always tell them that, you know, maybe you're not an artist, and that's okay, because the world needs art buyers as well. And it's super important that if you try something and you go, oh man, this isn't my thing, and you go off and make $1 million inventing the next Google, then you're going to be the person going, hey, they did something I can't do, and you're going to want to support that. So I think it's really important that each kid kind of find their voice, and sometimes the art is their voice, and it does teach them critical thinking skills. This one is not mine. I actually just went to Nancy Sykes Cochran's estate sale, and I had seen this, and I loved it, and I had always admired her work, and I thought, oh, you know, it's beautiful. I went to her estate sale and I was so inspired, and I really wanted this piece, so I bought it. And I thought, I'm gonna hang it in my studio to inspire me.
Sherry wanted to grow as an artist, and it came through the instruction and the opportunities that she gave her own students.
You know, I always talk to my students about, you know, they need to show their work and they need to sell their work. And I thought, you know, you're kind of a hypocrite. You know, you're not showing your work, you're not attempting to sell it, because I wanted kids to understand that they had a talent and a skill that other people prized, and it was super important for them to understand that that was a way for them to make a living, because technically I'm making a living out with art. And so I wanted them to understand, hey, I am special. And so I would do things to try and kind of get them to show and sell their work. And we were doing shows, and I would have the students come, and then they would put prices on their work. And other teachers at the time weren't doing that. And so that started happening. I thought, you know, you need to do this. And so
this is you looking in the mirror.
This is me looking in the mirror saying, okay, you are a hypocrite. And so I told 2 of my art teacher friends, I'm like, hey, we're going to Lakeland Art Club meeting. And they're like, okay. And so we went. And so we all 3 signed up that night for the Lakeland Art Guild. And so then we started going to the meetings, and it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. And I started competing, and you know, I still sometimes have that imposter kind of syndrome where I feel like, oh, you know, but then I realized through starting to show and have my work that I was just really lucky to be in a situation to learn from people that were amazing. So you had to find a piece in a thrift store and change it. And so that was kind of the joking thing, and you couldn't spend more than $25. So I found this really cool print, and I added this giant Mothra because it reminded me of Japanese, you know, Godzilla movies. Mm-hmm. And so I named it not Mothra because copyright infringement. Anytime I'm in a show with, you know, you interviewed Stephen and Wayne.
Right.
And I joke that, you know, I've told them both this to their face. I'm like, you know, I am proud to to lose to you guys.
Right.
Because that means I was good enough to be at a show with you guys.
Yeah.
I don't mind the losing because it makes me amp up my game. And it makes me kind of try and really work on my art myself. And so when you look at it that way, it's kind of like, oh, that's really, it's inspirational.
Right.
And, you know, having those talks with people or, you know, when you go to a meeting and somebody's talking about their artwork or you're seeing what's on a wall and you're like, how did they do that? You can ask them. So I was involved with Lakeland Art Guild, and then I decided to join the Bartow Art Guild as well. And I also joined Bridge. So I had all these organizations where I was meeting these fabulous people and I was having access to such a creative community. And it was really nice. And I think that's part of why it's so important to have that outreach and to, you know, to involve yourself. Out, then I can hear all my chickens and I'll leave the door open and they'll come up and I wanted the porch, I had the porch added on and the chickens will come up and they'll kind of peer in and kind of look to see what I'm doing. And so it's a lot of fun just to kind of have this space.
There was a time where she knew she needed to go from member to president to help the Arts Association grow.
There had always been kind of this thing between Lakeland and Bartow, so I started trying to kind of bridge this and kind of, I feel like together we're stronger. Yeah. And how can we bring more people into the community and kind of make those connections. And so when the current president of LAG was going to step down, I did Bartow Art Guild for, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. I was, you know, I don't remember how long I was vice president versus just a member. I think it was at least 3 years that I was vice president. They asked me, the LAG sent out a meeting or a notice and said, hey, we're looking for these positions. Who wants to run? And I was kind of like, okay, is it dumb, you know, to do vice president of BAG and president of LAG? And I thought, well, that kind of continues working together and bringing the organizations together and really kind of, you know, servicing both sets of members. When I was really sure that it was going to be 2 separate entities and, you know, direct path for each one, then I said, okay. So I created a lot at school. I would go in on the weekends and I would, you know, call it arting. And so I would go in on Saturdays and spend the day arting. You'd ask me about what do people need to do. I would, in front of the TV, I have a big board and I would just sit there and paint or draw or do whatever I was going to do, doing digital collage, any of those kind of things, editing photos. Just at night when I'm sitting in front of the TV or laying in bed watching TV.
Sherry and the team are making some changes to the association. Some of them include a new redesigned website, different opportunities for members and non-members, and one of the biggest changes, the name.
So the Lakeland Arts Association, we just recently changed our name. You mentioned that. We changed it because people had the same response to Guild that I had 30 years ago, which is, but I'm not good enough. Right. Because guild is you know, the medieval is that you were accepted into a guild and that you trained apprentices and you know, the idea of a guild is people really coming together to learn from one another. But there's an implied kind of level of mastery that people seem to think. So we decided to go with Arts Association because we wanted everybody to feel welcome. And we've changed our logo to be more inclusive. We want people to understand that whether you're a fiber artist or whether you're a mixed media artist, we're not just a paint guild. Because that's always what people think, is that they see a lot of 2D stuff, so they primarily think, oh, well, they're painters. I'm not a painter, so I'm not an artist. And that's not true. You know, there's all kinds of things, ways you can express your art and your creativity. And so now we're giving those options. And I think that my little pitch would be, come and try us out. We're finding new ways to engage with the community all the time. Our events, our shows are open for members and non-members, even our free show. So they're welcome to come and participate. For certain events like our RP funding show, it's a slight upcharge if you're not a member. There's a benefit to being a member, but you're still welcome to come. But this is a space that now I'm just kind of like, really, I almost can't believe I have it, because I know I'm so lucky. I always joke that I have art ADD because it depends on where I'm at the time. So right now I'm primarily a painter. In the past, I've done colored pencils. I've been a weaver. So I take all of my own resource pictures because I think that's super important. If you're using somebody else's resource picture, they've kind of done the work compositionally for you and kind of subject matter. And so I'll take pictures because I'll think, oh, I want to paint that. I love I did for our chicken show, for our bird show that we did, our wing show that we did over at Mulberry Cultural Center. I did myself as a chicken Madonna, which tied, kind of my idea of, Byzantine art historical elements and, kind of liturgical symbols. And I turned myself into a Madonna and the chicken was my child. And so I love that one because I thought it was funny and it suited me. Usually my most favorite art experience is the one I've most recently done, besides my chicken Madonna.
One of my favorite questions that I like to ask all the creative people that I talk to is their definition of what is art, because that definition ranges in all kinds of different places for each individual person. Here is Sherry's definition of what is art.
So I talk to students about this again all the time, and I say, especially when I'm doing photography, that when you can for a moment make me see what you see through your eyes, that's art. When you have a point of view and you are helping me understand what you're trying to communicate, that is art. It's something that only you can create. It's something that is just, I'm seeing what you want me to see because that's what you want, because you're taking I use an example of a rusty grate. And my photography kids would always take pictures of dirt and mold and stuff. They're like, because Miss Ross loves that stuff. And I'm like, but when you can take something like that, it's easy to take a picture of somebody that's pretty or a sunset and have a beautiful piece of artwork because you didn't have any part of that. But people can be undeniably beautiful. Sunsets are undeniably lovely. But when you can take something that isn't normally seen as being beautiful or lovely, and then you can change my view of it or make me see it in a different way on another level, that is where it becomes art.
In closing, Sherry has an important message for those looking to get into the arts.
Do what makes you happy. Buy all the things. I mean, if you're in a store and you see something, or if you go to a garage sale or wherever and you see supplies that you're like, hey, maybe I want to try that. And if you have the money, try it. I mean, it's so much better for you than any other kind of vice or kind of hobby sometimes. There are other things that you could do that, and so if you try it and you're not great at it, you can give it to somebody else and let them have some joy. If you try it and you like it, great. Keep doing it. Chartreuse. I do a lot of work at night because sometimes I'll work in front of the TV, like we had talked about earlier. I'll just have a board and I'll be either sitting in the living room or in the bed and just kind of painting away. I buy a lot from Blick and Jerry's Artorama. So those are probably my two favorites. Goya. So I usually listen to, my students are always like, what is this? I listen to sometimes I'll listen to, now it's called Old Wave, which makes me very sad because when I was young it was New Wave. I think I've just really enjoyed the journey.
To hear the full conversation, check out the podcast at soundingboardstudios.com.